The purpose of tonight's debate is to provide the candidates with the opportunity to communicate where they stand and how they intend to lead St. Helena on vital business and economic issues. Some of our questions are specific for particular candidates, and other questions are asked of all the candidates. We will be accepting proposed questions tonight from the audience. Index cards are available for the audience members to pose those questions. Pam Simpson, the Chamber's CEO, and Tracy Sweeney to my right. She is the chair of the Chamber's Government Relations Committee, and they are available to receive your questions. If you're watching from home, you may text questions into this telephone number, 707-333-2335. We will be particularly looking at or considering those questions that are non-redundant, those that are business related, and those that are about topics that would not require a candidate to recuse themselves. Alexander Barrett to my right, who is an engaged chamber member who serves on several of our committees, is our timekeeper. Please note the colored cards that he will be holding up for you to keep us all on track. So let us begin by introducing our two candidates for mayor. Mayor Ann Navarro and former Planning Commissioner Alan Galbraith. A coin toss was done earlier, and it was determined that Mr. Galbraith would begin with a 2-minute opening statement. At this time, Mr. Galbraith, it's your word.
Thank you very much. I first visited St. Helena in 1966, and of course was impressed with its charm. By a wonderful coincidence, I married a woman with deep roots here in the Napa Valley. We met while clerking for different justices on the California Supreme Court. I have always been a member of the California Bar. My professional career was with a well-known law firm in Washington, D.C. Over the years, we came to Napa County with our 3 children twice a year. We decided to retire to St. Helena in 2003. Since retiring to St. Helena, I served on the Planning Commission for 4 years, including a term as its chair. I've served on several city committees, especially those dealing with our water issues. I chaired the 2013-2014 Napa County Grand Jury. I am also a director and corporate secretary of Rianda House. I've met with many of you over the years. You know my door will always be open. 2 quick comments on city issues. First, public safety. The robbery on Main Street concerns each one of us. If elected mayor, I will undertake a review to find out if there are lessons to be learned. City government. The city's council's mantra has been that it could reduce administrative staffing levels and maintain service. That was false, and we now all know it. We lost 6 senior managers, starting with the Public Works Director last fall. These mass departures speak for themselves. The city has come unglued. Let me give you a specific example. There was no road improvement this summer because there was no one to manage the road contracts. We do have a new city manager, and we want to avoid the problems of the past. The case for new leadership with fresh thinking could not be more compelling. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro.
I'm running for a second term as mayor of the city of St. Helena. I do have a record. I'm very proud of it, and it's easy to poke at a record when you don't have one. Just to start a little bit about myself, I was born the youngest of 4 children in Boston. My father immigrated from Lithuania, spoke no English. He was a World War II Marine and taught me love of country and to give back, and I think I'm doing that now. I put myself through school. I have a bachelor's in geochemistry, a master's in geophysics. I worked as a geophysicist for 15 years, and following that, 10 years in Silicon Valley, doing everything from VP of Human Resources, engineering, and operations. I was elected to St. Helena City Council in 2010, and for the 4 years I've been an elected official, I've served as council member, vice mayor, and mayor. I, together with this council, have accomplished a lot. I'm very proud of that, and we are poised to do more in the near future. During the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, we managed to cut spending by $1 million, keeping our city solvent while others faced bankruptcy. We have focused on our long neglected infrastructure and have invested millions into roads, water, and wastewater systems that had not received any maintenance for decades. Despite the driest year in California recorded history, we delivered a safe public water supply with no fees and no water rationing. We sadly have the lowest park per resident, and we're addressing that. We brought 2 new parks online, Wapo and McCullough. To stay better connected, we revised the website, e-news, automatic agenda emails. I have open office hours. I'm at Farmers Market following Dell's example. I constantly interact with the committee on boards and commissions and activities throughout this community. Being an elected official is the steepest learning curve I can ever experience, I will tell you that. And it is difficult to understand it unless you've been there. I am seasoned, I am dedicated and balanced, and I will serve this community with honesty and integrity. I have to stop now. Gosh, when you do a lot, you gotta talk fast.
Thank you, Mayor Navarro. We will begin with a 3-part segment. The first segment consists of questions from the chamber. The second segment consists of questions from the community. And the third segment will be closing statements. Again, as a result of the coin toss, we will begin the first question with Mayor Navarro. In your opinion, what is the appropriate role of the chamber in local issues, and how actively will you include the chamber in your decision-making?
Obviously, the Chamber of Commerce represents our business community in large part. Realize everyone isn't a part of the chamber, but in large part you do. Clearly, that's a critical role in the decision-making going forward in St. Helena. Our community is made up of residents who have their lives here, businesses who have their livelihood here, and our city staff who actually work here and make their living here. All 3 of those groups of people need to come together when we're looking at the future of St. Helena. The Chamber of Commerce has always played a very active role during my tenure in opinions and direction of the city, and I think they should. We gain a lot from the revenue brought in by the businesses in this city. And without those businesses, this city would not be able to enjoy the lifestyle that we do. And so I think they have to be an active member.
Mr. Galbraith, you have a 2-minute rebuttal opportunity.
Well, I don't think really there's much to rebut. As I see it, the chamber is an important constituency in the city. If I'm elected mayor, though, let me be clear, I am going to serve the entire city as a whole. I have no conflict of interest. We have difficult issues facing the city involving the Adams Street property and other issues where I can lead. And these are going to affect everybody, including the business community. Now, what I listen to, quite frankly, is well-reasoned argument based upon a strong factual record, and I seek to make independent judgments in the entire to the entire benefit of the community. And certainly the chamber, which is well organized, which has a good research arm, deserves great respect in my decision making, and it will receive that.
Mayor Navarro, you have a 2-minute follow-up.
Sure. This is a small city, and each of us are conflicted out on some issue or another, typically. It's difficult not to in such a small place with the requirement that we have no conflict of interest anywhere near our vicinity. So, yes, I am conflicted out on some of those issues. But Mr. Galbraith's proposal that we donate the land on the Adams Street property to a developer land that belongs to all of us, the city of St. Helena residents, one of the most remarkable pieces of property in the city, is not a direction that I think is a good one. In addition to donating the land, there's a idea that we should also put another $1 million on top of that for development of that property for some apartments. And so I don't agree with that approach. And so I think that that needs to be taken into consideration versus being conflicted out.
Thank you. The second question will begin with Mr. Galbraith. You have a 3-minute answer opportunity.
Sure.
Should the business mix on Main Street be a city issue? And secondly, what is the role of the council in determining that?
Very definitely, the business mix on Main Street is a city issue. Some years back, at the time of the General Plan Update Steering Committee, a subcommittee was formed to look at this precise question. I functioned as the de facto secretary of that group, and we came up with language, which is in the General Plan Update, I believe, to the effect that we want diversity on Main Street. We don't want all tasting rooms. We don't want all jewelry stores. We don't want all art galleries. We need diversity on Main Street with shops that appeal both to the local serving, that are both local serving, and also appeal to our visitors. We know from experience that our successful shops like Steve's, like the Bicycle Shop, like Sunshine, certainly they serve our local community very well, but they also serve visitors. And as mayor, I'm going to be looking for, and hopefully proactively in conjunction with the business community, for new entrants into our market that will help keep our high-end retail supplemented and will keep our retail diversified. We cannot allow it to become too uniform in any one line of business.
Mayor Navarro, rebuttal, 2 minutes, please.
No rebuttal. I absolutely agree that the city plays a role in the business mix. We have heard from our residents lately that they do not want more tasting rooms and jewelry stores and things of that nature on Main Street. So we hear you. And that's why the city council called for a meeting, a discussion, which the city council should own and lead in order to determine what this community, businesses, residents, et cetera, care about and what they want that business mix to look like. This is not an easy thing. Let's be very clear. People, residents, want things that are certain types of shops with products and certain price levels. Businesses want businesses that are going to be very successful and lucrative so they can actually stay in business in the community. And, property owners on Main Street want the biggest bang for their buck. I mean, they own those properties and they want to get the most out of them, and we see that happening all the time. So it's 3 different competing interests here, and it's the role of the city council to call, direct, and engage the community in the meeting, the first meeting and any subsequent meetings, to discuss that so we can come together, figure out what St. Helena should look like, business mix, and then the city council would also play a role in incenting those property owners to rent to those businesses. Once the businesses are defined and they're part of the model, let's get them with quicker design review and maybe some permit assistance so that they're able to, so the property owners now will understand this is what the community wants. I'm going to get this done quicker, and I'll put the right tenants into the right place in our downtown.
Just a quick rebuttal here. My belief is that the mayor voted to reverse the Planning Commission in allowing a tasting room. My view of it is that these decisions belong to the Planning Commission. We have a Planning Commission. We want it to be effective. We want it to follow the rules set forth in the general plan, and that the City Council's role should be to reverse the Planning Commission only if it comes to the conclusion that the decision of the Planning Commission is arbitrary and capricious on these types of matters. Otherwise, it makes no sense to continue to support the Planning Commission. And I thought the Planning Commission on that tasting room reached the right result, and I believe the community thought so too, but the City Council couldn't let it go.
Thank you very much. The next question will begin with Mayor Navarro. Did I do that correctly?
Is that a question?
Okay. This question,
Yes.
This question, Mayor, has a bit of editorial context. The question comes at the end. The St. Helena Renaissance Foundation is a private entity that is hard at work trying to improve our downtown business corridor for the benefit of local residents and visitors alike. We have invested time and money with the city in improving benches and tree grates, restoring the electroliers, changing city regulations to support outdoor dining on Main Street, and developing a design for public restrooms on Money Way. We need to put more time and resources behind this effort to complete the public restrooms, to repave the sidewalks in order to become more competitive with surrounding towns whose revenues exceed ours. This is the question. As mayor, what will you do specifically to accelerate the construction of the public restrooms and the scheduling of repaving of the sidewalks? And will you direct more public funds for these and other projects to enhance our downtown?
I think our sidewalks are atrocious. I've been talking about them for years. They are expensive to replace. I think our roads are atrocious, and we have been talking about those for years. These things did not fall apart in the last 3 years while we've been in office. These have been neglected for decades, and we are systematically, this council, I together with this council, are trying to improve those. We have Measure T coming in a couple of years, where Measure A monies, that's a half-cent sales tax, will be taken from the flood projects over to roads and sidewalks. So we'll be using that. And we've also, I believe, donated $100,000 toward the restrooms and asked Renaissance to do some matching to be able to raise the funds for those restrooms. So we've taken certainly some steps. As I mentioned earlier, it's been a tough 4 years in terms of the recession. It's a difficult situation when we're strapped for cash because we need roads repaired, sidewalks repaired, and everything else. So I think a great first step was $100,000 toward the chamber for the restrooms. And I believe that you do need some more help. We recently approved the restroom plans. I believe Public Works worked with Mr. Friedrich and approved those restroom plans. And so what I'll do is continue to look for funding, continue to try to increase the revenue brought into the city through the businesses, and that includes TOT tax, and be as smart as we can with the expenditures we have so that we can redirect funds, as we have for the last 3 years, away from things that we think are not the best expenditure over to the things that we think need the most attention.
Mr. Galbraith, you have a 2-minute rebuttal opportunity.
Yes, let's keep the facts in mind. The city's reserve has increased from $2 million, and if Mr. David is right in the star, $5 million in the last couple of years. The problem is the city can't spend the money, but it's because it hasn't got the management to oversee the contracts to spend the money. If I were mayor, certainly I would be in favor of the city funding the public restrooms. It's not right to have visitors come to our city to try and attract them and not have decent public restrooms for them. So I would certainly urge the city council not to, if the matching program hasn't worked, just to bite the bullet, build those restrooms and get it behind us. And with respect to sidewalks and roads, you have to work that out in terms of priorities where you're fair to everybody. And I think it's extremely important that we review what we need to do, that we prioritize it in terms of what's worse and move forward with respect to our roads and sidewalks. The downtown sidewalks are a disgrace. But this goes back to the fact that we haven't updated our capital plan since 2012. Go to the website and take a look. It hasn't been updated since 2012. And if you look at the capital plan, it says it should be updated annually. And it hasn't happened. And so one of the first things that I will do as mayor is to encourage the city to update the capital plan, and then we'll take a look and prioritize. And certainly the downtown sidewalks, in my mind, are a high priority.
Mayor Navarro, a response for 2 minutes?
I'm not sure I understand the constant comments about that there's no city staff to do the work. City services are being handled. People are getting what they need done. I have not received significant complaints on anything. In fact, I have received less complaints than I have in the last years. We all know that we had staff leave for a number of different reasons. Those included higher paying jobs. one of them. That included more staff. Some of those staff members came to us and said, if you can match our fund, if you can match the salary, we'll stay. Deborah Height, who recently left to go to Yountville, has a child in school in Napa. It's a 40-minute extra round trip for her to come up here. And so she came to our city council meeting last time on her own time and followed through with a project she had brought through saying, I leave my hat in St. Helena. So, you know, I'm not sure why we keep referring to that, but we do have staff to do the job. We can update capital plans all day long, but if we don't get more money, if we don't figure out where to get that money and pay attention to that, then I think, you know, we're on the wrong track. So there's something to be said about digging in, really focusing on this business mix, and then recruiting, targeting, and encouraging the right businesses to come into St. Helena. We have fallen behind the other cities in doing anything of that nature, and I think that it has put us at a disadvantage and will continue to do so until we get more active.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Mr. Galbraith. St. Helena businesses for years have been paying an in lieu fee for parking into a fund which now exceeds $500,000. The ordinance restricts the funds solely to the construction of a parking garage. While there are many traffic and parking issues that cannot be easily addressed, this is one completely under the city's control. As mayor, you have the ability to act on this. Will you pledge to either build the structure or open the door to changing the ordinance to alternative solutions?
Well, first of all, as mayor, I don't have the authority. The mayor is just one vote on the city council out of 5. So you need to get your colleagues to go along, but it seems to me perfectly reasonable to look at alternatives. Obviously, I haven't looked at the legal issue that might be posed if you raise funds for a specific purpose as to whether the council can, in fact, change it to another related purpose. I'm going to accept the premise of your question that it can do so, and I would be delighted to work with the chamber to take a close look at that and to see what the alternatives are. And if there are reasonable alternatives, I'll make this pledge. I'll draft the ordinance.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, rebuttal?
Sure. I'll leave it to the city attorney to draft the ordinance because that's their role. The mayor, it's not the mayor's role, but you know, sure, we absolutely need to look at how to use that money. We did a test run with the PG&E lot last year. We put in 48 spaces where PG&E was digging up, before PG&E started digging up right off there off Mitchell Lane. You know, the first few months we had a few people pack there, and by the end we were getting quite a few people packing there, which was great. That's a possibility, and once PG&E is done with that location, we have every intention, we're keeping relationships good and conversations open. We have every intention of looking at that as a possible area for packing, whether it be a structure or a lot. There's also in the new general plan the rezoning of the Neiman property around Church Street, I believe is the first street off of Main. And Mr. Neiman had mentioned that he was interested in looking at potentially using that for parking or a parking facility. Would we be interested in or open to other approaches? Heck yeah. Let's be creative as we possibly can. We need to think together smartly and effectively to figure out how to get our visitors parked so they can walk through the city, and to make sure that we have the least amount of traffic as we possibly can throughout our main street. We're a one-lane highway, so it's not going to be that easy to do, but we really need people to pack, get out of their cars, and walk through our city. And one way to do that is appropriate, clean, and clear parking. Other options were Bank of America or other places that have excessive parking that we could pay to rent on weekends and times when they're not being used when we need them the most.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, do you have a
just
follow-up?
a quick couple of comments. I hope the mayor is not precluded from drafting ordinances. You know, in the past, I've drafted 2 that the city council's adopted. One was the current water shortage emergency ordinance. The other is the water management plan. I'm quite proud of those documents. I drafted them. They were certainly reviewed by the city attorney. Indeed, in January, I drafted the Phase 2 water shortage emergency resolution. It was reviewed by the city attorney on the spot. This is where I could bring a lot of added value to the city because I can and love to draft documents.
Thank you. Our next question will begin with Mayor Navarro. Again, it's got a bit of editorial context. The question is at the end. The idea that city government should somehow guide the marketplace seems to go against the very idea of our American free market and is not necessarily considered business friendly. However, residents have made it clear that a diverse downtown is what they want. Can you give us your viewpoints of city government's role in balancing market forces against the desires of residents to determine the future of St. Helena relative to business, tourism, and a vibrant economy that is necessary to sustain our town?
Sure. St. Helena has always been and will continue to be a place where both visitors and residents alike want to come. We have an amazing lifestyle here. We're surrounded by vineyards and views. We have a relaxed environment, great shops, restaurants, etc. So we are going to have visitors here. Our visitors are a huge economic contribution to us. Half of our general fund is provided by the businesses, hotels, and sales tax and things of that nature. And so, you know, I think most people understand this balance and actually embrace it. We do hear from some who don't and fight it, but I think we have, when you think about it, we've got sunshine with visitors enjoying those products, and you see locals picking up items for dinner. You know, at Goose and Gander, you have a drink and a burger down there, and you see visitors alike. Farmstead, the same thing. Even many of us can't buy artwork at Caldwell Snyder, but we certainly can go in and enjoy it as they open their gallery so generously for so many events. So we actually access that fantastic property as well. So the synergy between businesses and locals, I think, is already there. I do think that the city should, after hearing some of the concerns about which businesses go in and how many, should, as I said earlier, take a leadership role in leading the discussion and defining what the mix of businesses should be, not only for what the residents want, for what the businesses can do in terms of being successful, because that's critical as well, and I think for the property owners. So I think that we already have a model that works pretty darn well. When I'm in Trevina, I see as many locals in there as I do visitors. I think we have a tremendous balance. We need to embrace visitorship. I was a visitor a lot longer here than I have been a resident. And I strolled up and down Main Street enjoying all the same things that I stroll up and down Main Street right now enjoying. So I think what we need to do is come together, work together, define what the model looks like, get agreement, and then clearly target, recruit, and encourage those businesses to come into our city so that they're prepared for what to expect, and we can assist them in doing so.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, a 2-minute rebuttal.
Yes, I'd like to get back to the question. Certainly, to be responsive to the question, I believe that a diverse downtown and business-friendly environment go hand in hand, but as mayor, it's not my personal viewpoint that counts. It's the viewpoint of the community as expressed in the general plan that counts. And principled decision-making requires that our public officials pay proper obedience to the general plan. Of course, if there are elements in the general plan that we don't like, it can be amended, but there's a process that you must go through to do that. And obviously, we haven't had much luck yet finishing off the new general plan, but hopefully we'll get there. But that's what I would look to for a guide, because I believe in principled decision making.
Mayor Navarro, follow up?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that differs all that much from the question I answered, but the general plan is general. And as such, the city council and elected leaders should use that general plan in guiding the laws and ordinances and direction and strategy for the city. And that does not mean turning to page 31, looking at bullet 4, and saying that it says this, because that is not general. The general scope of the general plan is what we want, and that is a strong and sustainable economic downtown. We want our small town way of life. We want a mix of businesses that both visitors and residents can enjoy. And that, to me, is what the general plan says. And so working through that is the tough part. Sitting down and getting the community to work together to define what that looks like, and then making sure that everything is drafted and ordinances and laws are in place, that everyone understands what makes sense. The general plan was delayed because Mr. Galbraith stopped the general plan from being adopted in 2010, and I don't disagree with that. He made a very good point that we were basing the general plan on an erroneous water assumption, or at least lack of information. And so consequently, there were about 2 years of work after that, October 9th, 2012, where the Safe Yield Committee finally brought forward their final recommendation. And at that time, the census had changed. We certainly didn't want to adopt a general plan with a 2000 census. The 2010 census was updated. The 2005 Napa County Sustainability Document was changed. The economy changed drastically during that period of time. So we made the changes necessary and updates, reviewed it, and then went ahead and passed it to the Planning Commission, who has had it now for the last few months.
Thank you. We're going to ask the Chamber's last question of this segment, and then after, we're going to take a brief break before we begin segment 2, which are the questions from the community. It will give us a chance to get those questions organized. We've got quite a few, which is great news. So this question is going to begin with Mr. Galbraith.
Okay.
This is a short one, I should say.
An easy one is what you were saying.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay.
We want the easy
We'll call
ones.
it easy.
We both agree on that.
Great. On what issues relative to business do you differ the most from your opponent?
It's very clear that where we differ relates to the general plan. I believe in planning. I believe in our conditional use permit process. I actually think that the Planning Commission most of the time has implemented that very well. And as I see it, if you say that the market should run what happens on Main Street, that it's not me who should determine whether one more tasting room is enough or puts us over the limit, and you say that that really isn't the function of the city, as the mayor has said, then you just don't believe in planning and you don't believe in the general plan. And to go back to her prior answer, of course, if there's a very specific policy statement or implementing action in the plan, in a general plan, you can't just ignore it. You're supposed to follow it. And if you don't like it, you should go through the process of amending the general plan. Otherwise, there's no point to a general plan. And I do believe in planning. What can I say? That's where I am.
Mayor Navarro, rebuttal.
Yes, I'll go back to the tasting room example. I think Mr. Galbraith said the City Council couldn't leave that alone, that issue where the Planning Commission declined the permit and then the City Council couldn't leave it alone and granted the tasting room permit. Let's just say that Lawrence Papali and Mary Stevenson, who are longtime property owners on Main Street, appealed, rightfully so, the decision made by the Planning Commission. That's due process. They appealed that decision to the City Council, and the City Council took that under advisement and in an open public meeting had a discussion. Mr. Papali championed hard for that tasting room. The one thing that changed my mind, and as stated by my co-counsel, changed their minds, is that Mr. Papali and Ms. Stevenson were willing to give up an existing tasting room permit that they held. So it would not increase the number of tasting room permits within the city. At that time, we made the decision that it was a fair exchange, and we allowed a long-time respected property owner on Main Street to exchange a tasting room permit from one location to another. Appealing a planning commission decision is due process, not the fact that the city council couldn't leave it alone. We have a lot to do. We don't take up things that we just don't, we feel like we need to be involved in. We take up things that are put before us.
I'm not going to talk about the specifics of that case, just more generally. When applications go through an administrative process, the issues should be fleshed out at the planning commission level. And if an applicant doesn't make the point at the planning commission level, the city council shouldn't be listening to it. And absent arbitrary, capricious conduct, or something's really gone wrong, the reason we have a planning commission is to handle those issues. And sure, there's a due process right to appeal, but there's also a very strong concept in my mind of administrative deference, and that's important if you want to get people to serve on the planning commission, because in general, with respect to those types of issues, their decision should be final, and their decisions are much out of the political process, which is very good. That's why you have a planning commission.
Thank you very much, both of you. We will see you back in 10 minutes. We're going to take let's begin. Volume, it's on. Okay, let's begin. Thank you very much. So we're going to begin segment 2 of the debate, and this involves questions from the community. We have received questions from audience members and from community members who have texted us questions who are watching us. So we'll begin. The first community question will begin with Mayor Navarro. We will follow the same format. The person who begins the question will have a 3-minute opportunity to answer. We will have a 2-minute rebuttal and then another 2-minute follow-up. So the question that we want to begin with Mayor Navarro, if I can read everybody's writing here. What role does workforce housing play in the life of St. Helena? And how should city and the business community work together on this issue?
The business community and the city?
Correct.
Okay. Boy, this is a complicated question. Workforce housing is an actual definition that doesn't exist in terms of the state, in terms of regulated housing. Affordable housing is a typical term used by the state, and it means subsidized housing in most cases through ABAG and so on and so forth. Workforce housing, I believe, is a term that was coined by here in St. Helena to mean sort of that group of folks that make perhaps too much money to qualify for the affordable housing opportunities, but not enough money to buy $1 million house in St. Helena. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't know how exactly to answer the problem of housing. I have talked to other municipalities up and down this valley, as well as the South Bay and other areas, and I haven't heard anybody answer that question adequately yet. It's something that we have to keep working at. I think the city and the business community should work together and engage in conversations and in ways to ensure that as we grow our city in terms of businesses and employees, that we're working together on a better understanding of what that's going to mean to the impact to our city, either through additional commuters or the lack of housing that we have. Most residents that I speak to don't want hundreds and hundreds of more homes, no matter what level, built in St. Helena. They feel that it will be crowding. I think people feel there'll be more traffic and parking issues, and that with the flag lots in certain parts of town, we're already pretty crammed in. So, can we build housing for everyone who wants to live here and work here? No, we absolutely cannot. But at 9% of regulated housing, that's the ratio of regulated versus housing units, we are tied with Yountville as the number 1 municipality in the county for having affordable affordable housing available. And so I'm sorry that I don't have the answer. All I can tell you that as mayor and with the city council, I will continue to work with businesses as they come into town and look at more employees coming in to the area so that we can work on solutions. But I actually don't have an answer to workforce housing at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, do you have the answer or some ideas?
No, I have some ideas, but I certainly wouldn't. Sorry about that. I have some thoughts, but to say I have solutions would be saying too much. First of all, to me, affordable housing, for all practical purposes, is rental housing, and it's income regulated. Workforce housing is housing that seeks to attract and hold, for example, our city employees who may well earn too much to qualify for income regulated affordable housing. Other cities have certainly worked hard at workforce housing over the years, including, I believe, the city of Napa. Our big problem is the lack of a funding source that enables us to push forward with workforce housing. I know that Mr. Vondra suggested in the newspaper the possibility of a transfer tax. That sounds interesting to me. I think he suggested a 1% transfer tax when people sell their homes and have that go into a fund and then see where we can go with workforce housing. I don't know whether that's legally permissible at this point, but certainly it struck me as an idea worthwhile to explore. And that's me. I'm open to ideas from others as we seek to address this very difficult problem for us, and we need to address it because it's not a good for many of our city employees to be commuting into the city, and we can see the consequences of what might happen to us from the recent earthquake in Napa. You want key city employees to be close by, especially in the case of an emergency. This is a long-term problem. It's going to take a lot more thinking, but I'm willing to work with anybody in the community that has an idea that would push it forward.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, a response?
Yes, the transfer tax was suggested by Councilmember Scolati. I also read it in the newspaper, and I think it's definitely something to look at. I don't know the details of it. I haven't done the research on it myself, but I think it's absolutely something we should stay open-minded toward. I would also look at simple things like additional transportation. You know, any place I've ever lived in the country, there's always been commuter issues. There's particularly expensive places. There's just not enough housing right adjacent to where the work is. You take Manhattan, Boston, any place. People commute in from Brooklyn and people commute in from, South Boston to get there. And so I think we need to look at additional transportation and need to do that with NCTPA, more rapid transportation opportunities. However, Napa used to have plenty of workforce housing, and now that they're enjoying more economic success, they now are having the same workforce housing problem because the prices of their housing has gone up, and so now they're looking for ways to bring in folks from other areas as well where the housing costs are a little bit more affordable. So, you have success, and so you have an increase in housing prices. That's an issue that affects most municipalities. It's a difficult one because the solution is to not have economic success so that we don't have high cost of housing. It's really a complicated issue. I do want to say, though, just as a plug for our employees, with the earthquake, we had our wastewater, inspected within 1 hour and checked. Our streets, our city buildings were checked for safety. Our police had patrolled departments. Our fire department had responded to Napa with an engine. And I could not be more proud of the immediate and rapid response of our city employees in the aftermath of that earthquake.
Thank you very much. The second community question is going to Mr. Galbraith, and it's specifically addressed to you. Alan, you said in the debate hosted by the League of Women Voters that you were not an advocate of council's adoption of the vacation rental ordinance, and further that you do not want to see the number of permits expanded. would you take it further? And would you move to repeal the ordinance and rescind existing permits?
The answer to that is no, as much as I would like to. We need to move forward and not backward. The City Council made the decision to award those permits, and so be it. I was the lone consistent dissenter on that. I think my position was right. It was consistent with the approved housing element. It was consistent with the land use element. But the City Council, in its wisdom, went in a different direction. Having done that, we need to move forward, not backward. Now, having thought about it more, I must say there's one caveat in the position with further learning that I would make, and that is I don't think I have an objection to short-term rentals where the homeowner actually lives in the house. That, to me, is quite different from short-term rentals, which are turning over without the homeowner in the house. And I think to a neighbor of mine who complained bitterly about it, saying, you know, if I wanted to live next to a hotel, I would have bought a house next to a hotel. And that is the strong residential attitude that I've experienced through the city. But we are where we are. We've got other issues. We need to move forward. And as long as we're not getting huge complaints into the city, even though I certainly hear them, I'm not prepared to revisit the issue at this point in time. There are other things we need to do first.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, a rebuttal?
I'm not sure if it's a rebuttal. The vacation rental ordinance went through due process. We had multiple public hearings, and our city community was able to speak and write in and voice their opinion, as they should, on that particular ordinance. We drafted one, and just to be sure that we didn't forget about it or let it go by the wayside or have it turn into a mess, we built in a 1-year review of that ordinance so that we would force ourselves to go back, review that ordinance, and see how it was working. If you never try anything, then as a leader, you are stagnant. Putting together an ordinance that allowed our community ways to help supplement their own home costs or provide others an opportunity to experience St. Helena and bring TOT into the city, we tried it. And we built in our own correction, possibility. And when we reviewed it, we didn't have a lot of complaints. In fact, we really had none. People were pretty pleased with it. I have not heard a lot of complaints about the living next to a hotel at all. I haven't heard any, actually. And I think that that's exactly what we should do as leaders. Try something. Don't worry about making a mistake every single time. This is not concrete on the ground. An ordinance can be changed and adjusted, and that's what our role is. I don't agree with the expansion of the number of units. I think we're good to go, and we should go another year before we again take a look at it and see how it's working.
Thank you. Mr. Galbraith, do you have a response?
No.
Okay, we're going to move forward with the third question from the community, and we're going to begin with Mayor Navarro. What are your priorities regarding traffic control on Highway 29, specifically south of the high school, also including the county territory?
The county territory down how far?
Wherever the traffic backs up.
So American.
you
okay,
choose
so
which day.
Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and begin with American Canyon then.
Yeah.
American Canyon, get your lights fixed so that they all turn green at the same time on 29. Now that we've solved that problem, let's move on to south of the high school, I guess, south of St. Helena. Traffic control is an interesting thing. Recently, we voted to put a new light in at Grayson. I was the lone vote that said no on that. Lights slow down traffic. We all know that. Any traffic expert knows that. The Pope Street and Mitchell lights That double light, weirdo light there slows traffic down. Adams Street slows traffic down. And we know this because before we get to those lights, we can be sailing along, and then we're very, very slow. And after we get beyond that light, we move along. And the opposite is coming the other direction. I don't think you can't have lights in town, but I think we can do a better job of synchronization. Perhaps we can turn them off when we're not in the height of traffic. I have often suggested, and maybe it's because of my background, but a police officer, at the critical junctures during the height of traffic times, turn the lights off, get an officer out there, part-time, directing traffic through the city of St. Helena, so that it isn't a matter of wait and stop and that kind of thing, and we have someone with some competency moving traffic through there. Another thing that will help is the new middle lane that's going to be put in by Caltrans. You all know, I hope, that in 2017, Caltrans is repaving Highway 29 from Me Lane, and there will be a center turn lane, which will allow people to get out of the way when they're turning onto Grayson or other side streets and allow the flow of traffic to continue through St. Helena. So I think we should, I'm not a fan of lights. I know people are talking about rotaries. They're not roundabouts. I come from Boston, and we call them rotaries in the United States. And, I just think that the right-of-way issues are too great. They need too much room. We have the wine train. We have buildings built right up to the sidewalk level. And so I think that we should look at traffic lights, turning them off, reducing them, and certainly consider hiring, for the good of the community and the business community, police officers or traffic control people at high traffic times. White gloves, of course, on a little stand with a whistle.
Okay.
Naturally.
Well, for a city that asserts it's strapped for money, it seems to me we're going to have to rely on traffic lights and not on hiring a police officer to direct traffic. That's why we have traffic lights. I was chair of the Napa County Grand Jury in 2013, 2014, and I was so lucky because I was going down to Napa as all that traffic was coming up, and I was coming up as all that traffic was coming down, sometimes actually stalled around Rutherford and Oakville, just a massive parking lot in the other direction in the late afternoon. And wow, was I thinking we need to figure out some way to get cars off the road. How do we go about it? Well, it's clearly a regional problem. It's clearly a problem for the Transportation Planning Agency, the NCTPA. But there's some things that need to be done. We have to figure out a way to get more people into those wonderful buses and out of their cars. We need to persuade businesses that they should be moving their workers, whether in the wineries or in the hospitality businesses, up and down the valley in van pools so they can get to their destinations. Long term, I'm interested in the work that's going on in terms of a light rail system to see whether that might eventuate. Now, admittedly, that's long term. And I also think we're going to be faced with, but it's a good thing, as the Vine Trail moves forward with more people coming to St. Helena on their bikes. And I really look forward to that. I'm a cyclist myself, and I think that's a very good thing. But certainly, as mayor, I'm going to do all I can to think about this problem and to see what I can do to push the NCTPA into making progress with respect to it.
Great. Okay, Mayor Navarro, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. I was addressing just the area south of St. Helena. I don't think that we're going to solve the whole valley problems with those suggestions of lights and rotaries. NCTP is conducting a traffic study right now, a county-wide traffic study. They're working on that report, and the hope is that that report will then lead to some very clean and clear results, or at least some results on how to manage traffic in this valley. It's not going to be easy no matter what, but hopefully that extensive study will have some good results. The St. Helena shuttle, let's just point to that. We took the St. Helena shuttle, we revised the schedule. It's now a call for appointment. We have increased ridership, I think 60%. some remarkable percent since we've done that. Call for a ride, for $1, you get where you want to go, for $1, you get home. Pretty unbelievable. So that can be used by visitors and residents alike, and we know that it's working. So things like that make sense when they make sense. Streamlined buses. I am a huge fan of rapid transit buses up and down the valley, and they don't have to come on 29. They can come up up the trail, smaller buses with smaller amounts of people, dropped off at each of the city locations, and then a city shuttle, just like we already have, picking people up from the trail and bringing them back into the cities, to the downtowns at Yountville, at Calistoga, at St. Helena. I'm throwing out ideas here. I came from a mass transit world. I grew up in Boston. I took the train to school. I understand how it can work when it's done right. And I think that Napa has the opportunity now with this new project to really roll their sleeves up and get into it. And I think the community is not going to put up with this traffic much longer, and the pressure will be to find some kinds of solutions, no matter how painful they are.
Getting the horses to drink.
Getting the horses to drink. Yep.
Thank you
if you
very
keep them
much.
thirsty long enough.
Okay, the fourth question from the community, again, is directed for Mr. Galbraith. You mentioned that you would investigate the lessons learned from the robbery. Do you feel that safety was not properly handled? And do you know what review has or has not already taken place?
I'm not going to pass judgment on what has happened. What seems to me should happen is that there should be a strong after-action report, and a strong after-action report should then be vetted by people who are expert in policing. And I don't know whether there are lessons to be learned or there are not lessons to be learned, but I think we need to go through that process. There's obviously concern in the community as to what happened and how it was handled. I don't know whether it's a valid concern or not a valid concern, but let's let the facts get out on the table, and then I would strongly suggest, I'm hoping there will be a strong after-action report by the police department, and that it would then be subject to review, including by people who are expert in this area, which I am not.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, rebuttal?
Yes, I am very proud of our police department. Our response time to that crime was under 1 minute from the time the call was received at dispatch. It's a complicated issue when there are guns on Main Street, and nobody wants to take the chance of having anyone hurt over some lost items. And so, the parties in play made decisions that worked for them and for the safety of their employees. I'm not going to get into that detail because I think it's inappropriate to do so. I will say that I, myself, the city manager, and the chief of police met with the jewelry store owners that very same day. The business community was concerned, and so I called for a meeting of the Chief Rubin to meet with the business owners and to go through tips on how to stay safe, any information on what to do, any kind of guidance and training that they were looking for. It was attended by, I think, 10 business owners, maybe 12, and I certainly was there. I thought the chief did a great job. I also asked her to come here and report minute by minute, second by second, what happened that day. She did that. I would encourage anyone who's interested in getting an exact report of what happened and how they handled that situation to watch the council meeting. It is extremely detailed and very, very informative. Again, these criminals have likely been in Santa Rosa and all kinds of municipalities around the area. They have not been caught. Even despite one of them being shot, they still got away. So I don't think we can point to our police force who answered the call in under a minute and say, how could they possibly have gotten away? I think we have to realize that our police force was there and they will not stop until they find these criminals.
Thank you very much. Mr. Galbraith, you can respond to that, or we can move
very,
on to another community
very briefly.
question.
I have the highest respect for our police force, absolutely, and for our police chief. That's not the point. The point is that when we have a serious incident, whether it's in the police department or elsewhere. There should be a thorough report, and it should be peer-reviewed. And the point is not to criticize anybody. The point is to see whether in the future there are lessons that we can learn, and maybe there are none here. I just don't know because, as I said, I'm not expert. But let's not fear having a good review of what happened when something like this occurs to us. Let's welcome it. And I would hope the police department would welcome it. And that's not the basis of any criticism whatsoever. In the context of practicing law over 30, 40 years, I was peer-reviewed regularly. I welcomed it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the fifth question from the community. Yeah, so we'll begin with Mayor Navarro. Excuse me. How do
I
you
look
feel,
that bad, Mr. Navarro?
Mayor Navarro? How do you feel about annexing Meadowood to the city of St. Helena?
Annexation is a very complicated question. It requires people a lot more well-versed in the whole thing than I am. What I feel strongly about is that the sphere of influence study should be done. The sphere of influence study for municipalities should be done about every 5 years. We have not had one since 2008, so we are overdue. The third party, LAFCO group, will use standard requirements and criteria to determine the sphere of influence and where it may make sense for boundaries to be changed. That process needs to happen. And I will strongly work toward making that happen. It's a third-party evaluation. It needs to happen. We are overdue. At that point, I will work collaboratively with any and all parties involved to make sure that the final result makes sense for everyone. We can't ignore the process because we're afraid of what financial impacts might affect one entity or another. We owe it to our community, we owe it to all parties to make sure that the government is following due process, making sure that that sphere of influence study happens, and then using that data to engage in conversations that make the most sense for the community. So that's what we need to do. We need the data first, and from that point forward, we need to look at what Meadowood wants, at what the study says, what Meadowood wants, what the county wants, what the city wants, and come collaboratively to a conclusion that makes sense for everyone.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly agree with the mayor. It's a very complicated issue, and I don't pretend that I understand the legal details. Here's what I would say about it. If you're going to expand the city limits, then you have to also look at what the costs are that you're taking on. We're a full-service city. If we expand, as the chamber question said, down south to Zinfandel Lane or wherever, we're also taking on huge further costs and service responsibilities. And at this point, with our staffing, I'm concerned that we couldn't take it on. Beyond that, before I would move forward, I would really want a true legal analysis as to whether the county can or cannot veto the issue. It's obvious that the county is going to resist it. And why is it obvious? Because the county provides enormous services that benefit everybody in the county, including the jail, the sheriff, health services, inspection services, and so forth. And the county is in a position with the Ag Reserve that it can't and won't go out and raise additional revenue. So you're asking the county to give up revenue, and if you ask the county to give up revenue, then they're going to ask you, what services should we curtail? And then are you really going to push it forward, as your question suggested at this time, when the county is reeling from the earthquake damage in the city of Napa? The county office building won't be open until the beginning of the year. The smaller office building on 2nd Street is red tagged. So this is not an issue even diplomatically you could or would want to raise with the county at this point in time, I don't think.
Thank you. Mayor Navarro, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. I'm focused on the city. I understand that the county focuses on the county needs. Our jurisdiction lines don't really cross. We are working together, and we do work together. But my focus is on this city. We already provide Meadowood and South St. Helena with water, our precious water. They are in need of wastewater treatment service. A resort is not a wastewater treatment place, and they need some assistance with that. We are the first responders for fire. We're the closest. The Cal Fire Station is way up toward Calistoga. So our guys get to Meadowood first. Our guys get to South St. Helena first. Yet we're not considered covering them. Our PD is the closest, and we can be the first responders to them. So I would say that the city is already doing a lot to help maintain those two areas, that needs to be taken into consideration in terms of how it affects us, the residents of St. Helena, our water supply. And I think that it is only fair to move forward with a third-party independent evaluation to look at the facts and the data and their opinion, and then begin discussion. If we hide our heads in the sand and we never look at the tough problems, or we say, gosh, you have these issues going on now, well, they also have a $200 million a year budget, and we have a $9 million a year budget, then we're never going to move forward. It's my job as mayor to continue to look for ways to make St. Helena better.
Thank you. The last question of this segment of community questions will begin with Mr. Galbraith, and in fact it specifically asks a question of you. You served on both the Water and Housing Committees. The Water Committee determined that St. Helena's water supply is limited and vulnerable. The Housing Committee concluded that the only feasible way to add affordable housing would be through large development. How do you reconcile these very different and conflicting points?
Well, first of all, let me be clear. And that is the Housing Committee at the end of the day was looking at 28 units or 30 units. The issue there is whether we have the water reserves that could be made available for affordable housing. Whether it's 6 units, 10 units, or more units, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, do we have the water available? It's obviously a social purpose to make the water available for affordable housing as we can. And the Safe Yield Committee fixed the safe yield of the system at, I think, 1,950 acre-feet. The good news is that our average over the last 5 years has dropped below that. And so we do have some room for supplying some water for affordable housing or for other municipal purposes, whatever it might be. This is obviously going to be the subject of real discussion in the City Council, but not for huge numbers of housing units. That's for sure too. So we need to see how our water situation continues to develop. This year, water consumption seems to be dropping even further. My guess is it's on the industrial side, on the residential side, and it could be that if we had a water conservation coordinator, as the outside consultants have recommended for years, and we took a close look at industrial and commercial use, there'd be potential for further water savings. And quite frankly, I wouldn't rule out, if you had a person on staff, that person also might be looking out for new sources of water. What caught my attention this year was how dependent American Canyon was on the state water project, but how they also were able to go out and get other water to supplement state water project water. And I believe, especially once the new pumping station comes online at Dwyer Road, that we will have the pumping capacity to bring more water up if we can find it. Now, again, there are also rate implications that are involved that have to be studied because if we do get new water, I certainly don't want it to be at the expense of a further rate increase on our customers, but at the same time there may be projects which can use the incremental water which can bear the burden. For example, a new hotel project. So these are all very complicated, interrelated issues. Now, with respect to Adams Street, just to go back to that, the mayor referred to it at the beginning. What happened there was that the city council authorized RFPs on a small portion of the Adams Street property. The planning commission, which I was chaired at the time, undertook to evaluate them. We did that at the specific request of Mayor Britton. We evaluated and sent back to the city council thinking that they would proceed with a selection when they took the position that none of them met the terms of the RFP, which of course they knew when they referred it to the planning commission for evaluation. That was the difficulty there. Thank you.
Mayor Navarro, rebuttal.
Sure. I mean, I think our water supply is something that we have to be careful of. We are lucky to have a leading edge water model in this city. For our tiny little city, we have a water model program that is probably unsurpassed in the state, which is kind of crazy, but we're lucky because we had good folks working on it. And that will help us plan for the future. We need to be smart, and we need to make sure that we make decisions carefully. Large scale anything doesn't really ring well in my ears. I don't care if it's large scale housing. I don't think if it's apartments or 100 houses or a huge hotel. I don't think we need to be doing large scale anything, not just because of our water, but also because it doesn't fit the character of our city. We listened to the community when they said they wanted small infill housing projects. And we have two that are ongoing right now. Larry Turley was generous enough to donate the Pope Street property, and Calistoga Affordable Housing is handling that project. We're working with him on that. We have an appointment next week, actually, to continue to look for the gap funding that we need. And we also have the McCorkle property, which we purchased. People talk about affordable housing, but this council stepped up and took action in both of those. We used the money that had been sitting in there for a long time to actually purchase land, which everyone says is the biggest barrier. And both of those will be small infill projects. So, you know, I think that we need to be careful with our water. I think we need to do sensible projects, try to stay water neutral, and make sure that the balance of everything we do makes sense, that we're not doing too much of one housing, too much commercial, too much of this. We need to really stay balanced and stay ahead of the game in terms of properly utilizing the water that we have. And thanks, St. Helena community, for cutting water losses so that we have more to work with.
Thank you.
Cutting water use.
Thank you very much. So we're going, I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Galbraith, you have a response.
Oh, just briefly, you know, the mayor voted against the acquisition of the McCorkle property, and I thought she was right to do so because there was no feasibility study at that point in time, and that was a year and a half ago. I recall vividly that the city manager said that it would be moving forward in 6 months, and nothing has happened since. And if I'm mayor, I believe the council and the mayor have a fiduciary duty before they make a substantial purchase to have a feasibility study to ensure that the objective of what you're trying to do can be met and can be met within a reasonable period of time. So that's that's the way I proceed. I proceed on the basis of strong documentation indicating at least there's a good chance you can proceed. At this point, we have no evidence that there is. It's been sitting there for a year and a half, and nothing has happened despite the promise of the city manager that it would have moved forward within 6 months. With respect to the Pope Street property, the issue there is a large funding gap, and the question is whether the city's going to bite the bullet and basically meet that gap, because I don't believe, could be proven wrong, but I'm skeptical, especially after the earthquake, that the other funding sources are going to be there for that project to proceed. And I listened to Mr. Turley back in May basically saying that that project was not possible to finance unless the city really stepped up to the plate.
Thank you both very much. We are going to conclude the segment 2 of the debate, the mayoral debate. which included the community questions, and we're going to move on to the candidates' closing statements. According to a coin toss that we did earlier this evening, we're going to begin the closing statement with Mayor Navarro, and each candidate is going to answer this question. St. Helena's economy is dependent upon and influenced by the wine industry and tourism. There seems to be a growing sentiment towards drawing a line in the sand between tourism and quality of life. The Chamber believes not only that these can successfully coexist, but that it is crucial to find the common ground for St. Helena's economic vitality. How do you intend to change the discourse from animosity to collaborative?
What is the time I have? I'm sorry.
4 minutes.
4 minutes. Oh, okay. So to find common ground, we first need to get agreement on what downtown should look like. By defining the mix of preferred businesses that serve residents and visitors alike, I think we can accomplish a lot of things. And the City Council called for a meeting to do just that. It's our role to lead that discussion and make that happen. If we get that model in place, we can begin to encourage, not only encourage, but go recruit, actively recruit businesses that we want to see in our city. Right now, I think businesses feel like if they put their toe in the water at St. Helena, they might get burned. The city can play a role in encouraging those businesses by adding incentives for preferred uses on Main Street. So if it's part of the model, I'll tell you what, your permitting will be easier. You'll have a priority on your review. And if you rent to people that are businesses that are in this model, it'll be easier for you. Maybe that will help property owners better understand that it isn't all about just getting the biggest dollar they can. Taking the route of finding the right businesses in those properties will be easier for them, and that their tenancy will be a much more enjoyable placement. The community will know what to expect, and businesses will come in feeling welcome instead of having been battered through a series of appeals processes and the community being upset. And then I do believe in the free market. Once the businesses are here, let the best sandwich shop succeed. Let the best products sold do well. Let the best restaurants with the best service do well. I do not believe that the free market defines what the city of St. Helena downtown looks like. I do not. I think we need to define that. But once that's defined and businesses come in, then let the free market determine how those businesses succeed or not. It is the American way. And it keeps prices down, it keeps products better, and it offers the best things to people who are using the stores. Getting agreement on that, let me tell you something, this is not going to be easy. I don't even begin to say, we'll have a meeting, we'll all decide what downtown's going to look like, and we're off and running. But we need to stay tenacious with this. We need to get this done. And I think that balance is the key word. We need to balance the competing interests. Again, residents care about the products that are sold and the prices they're sold for. Who doesn't want to shop on Main Street and get a shirt for $12? Well, maybe not everybody, but it's something that people care about, the prices and the products. Businesses, they have to make money. It's economic feasibility for them. They have to be able to pay their rent and make money and stay in business. And property owners, we can't deny them the chance to make money off their own property by telling them, they can only rent to cobblers because that's what the community wants. They have to be able to rent to businesses that also bring in revenue to them. So it won't be easy, but we need to lead that discussion. This question, like all our issues, is complex. It requires time and experience and to fully understand how to navigate them. After 4 years as an elected official, I have the experience to do that. I have the dedication to do that. I am balanced, and I have an excellent rapport with city staff. The city council, each member of the city council endorses me, as does every mayor up and down the valley. And while they may not be the previous mayors of the city of St. Helena in years gone by, they are the ones that we will be working with, the council and mayors today, in leading Napa Valley.
Thank you, Mayor Navarro. Mr. Galbraith, you have a 4-minute opportunity to present an answer to the question.
We agreed that you would reread the question again because my answer is more precise, I hope, to the question.
That is very fair, and I will. St. Helena's economy is dependent upon and influenced by the wine industry and tourism. There seems to be a growing sentiment toward drawing a line in the sand between tourism and quality of life. The Chamber believes not only that these can successfully coexist, but that it is crucial to find the common ground for St. Helena's economic vitality. How do you intend to change the discourse from animosity to collaborative?
All right. First, at the outset, let me thank the Chamber for holding this wonderful forum. As mayor, my door will be open to all the people of St. Helena. I will listen, I will be inclusive, and I will be transparent. We need productive conversation that brings results. In thinking about the Chamber's closing question, I recalled the fine report of the Economic Outlook Study Group, which was a joint product of the Chamber of Commerce and the City of St. Helena, perhaps 5 years ago. The report makes a couple points that are widely accepted, I think. The dominant industry is wine, and we want that industry to thrive, obviously. We all acknowledge that the wine industry is the engine that drives the Napa County economy. The second point it makes is that tourism is the second industry, and the report states, a thriving wine industry attracts and depends on tourism, especially high-value, low-impact visitors who appreciate and enhance the local lifestyle. And the report's first conclusion was, keep wine business in focus, symbiotic relationship between wine and tourism. On the other side, what about residential attitudes? We residents most value our lifestyle here in St. Helena. We feel ourselves, I think, to be exceptionally fortunate. But I think we all understand that our economic vitality and lifestyle depend on visitors who continue to come here to enjoy the wine, the natural beauty, and the wine country lifestyle. St. Helena is the destination city in Napa County, and certainly we should try to keep it that way. So the issue, as I ponder the Chamber's question, comes down to how we minimize conflict between our quality of life and the impacts on us from our visitors. And as I was doing it, I was thinking about traffic and water. In prior discussion, I went through what I saw in terms of how we might work to minimize the traffic impacts. Here, all I would add is if we can make some progress on traffic congestion, it will go a long way toward building common ground between tourism and our quality of life. Water. Our residential community is worried about the security of our future water supply. A curtailed water supply affects quality of life. Many of our residents bought their homes because they enjoy their gardens. They do not want commercial growth cutting into their water supply. And here the answer is twofold. First, as I perhaps previously mentioned, we need to hire a water conservation coordinator who seeks out water conservation opportunities, including among our industrial and commercial customers. We also need to educate our residents on our water situation. It's a constant process to do that. And then just a couple of other quick points. We must focus on infrastructure projects that are a benefit to both residents and visitors. My view of it is that new downtown sidewalks will vastly improve downtown visual experience for both visitors and residents alike. And also new landscaping on the south entry to the city upon conclusion of the undergrounding project will also improve the visual experience for both visitors and residents. And so my conclusion is that the answer to the Chamber's question lies in good planning and in the confidence of the community that we are planning well. And just a final comment, I would make the point that I do have the endorsement of our local supervisor, Diane Dillon. I'm thrilled with that endorsement. And I do have the endorsement of 4 former mayors, Lowell Smith, Adi Hain, Greta Erickson, Frank Toller. And to me, that's exceptionally important because they know St. Helena and they know we need to move forward and they have confidence in my leadership that I can do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Alan Galbraith, Madam Mayor. We thank you both very much for your time, your earnest answers, and you both get gold stars for adhering to our strict time process tonight. You were very easy to work with. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to take about an 8-minute break. We'll see you back then. 8-minute break. Okay, let's begin. I want to start by welcoming our candidates. Candidate and current council member Mario Scolati, current council member Peter White, and Mr. Paul Doring. Welcome. Thank you. So this segment is going to consist also of 3 parts. We'll begin with opening statements, and then we will ask questions from the chamber, followed by questions from the community, and then you will be given an opportunity to make a closing statement. Because you drew names earlier, we are going to follow a format as a result of who drew what position. So the opening statement we will begin with Mr. Doring, but before we start, I just want to make mention that we are open to oh, I'm sorry, it is Mr. Scolati. Forgive me. Thank you. I want to mention that we are soliciting questions from the community. So if you are here in the audience or if you're watching at home, please do submit some questions. They are here and they're available to answer whatever it is that you want to ask about. Again, we ask the questions be non-redundant, that they be business, economic related, and that they not be on a topic where they would have to recuse themselves. And so with I think the housekeeping notes prepared, here is the telephone number if you are at home and you want to text in a question, 707-333-2335. And I believe that number will be repeated on your screen throughout the debate. So let's begin with opening statements with Council Member Mario Scolati.
Thank you so much to the Chamber for hosting this forum tonight. I'm so happy that it's televised, and I know that a lot of friends and supporters are at home watching. I just want to thank you guys for tuning in. I wanted just to briefly say a little bit about me as a candidate and also my relationship and my love for business. My family moved here straight to St. Helena from Italy in 1901, so we've been here 113 years. I was born at the Adventist Health Sanitarium in 1980. My family has been operating businesses on Main Street for 35 years, consistently without closing. I attended St. Helena High School, where I shared the great privilege of being president of my class, along with Del Britton, whose picture's back there, in the class of '57. I studied at University of Virginia, business and architecture. And it was in further studies at UC Berkeley that I fell in love really with business and specifically my fascination with Asia and simultaneously with wine. Growing up in the Napa Valley, I was able to preside over an auction house and sold $25 million worth of rare and collectible wines into Asia with 20 trips to Asia. And today I'm an active businessman in the community. I recently just closed equity funding for a vineyard development project that's one of the most sustainable of its kind, just south of the Auberge property, and being involved in such a large project now for the first time as a young person, I've been absolutely in a way struck with gratitude about the importance of marketing, the importance of communication, and the importance of being able to come together as a team and to thoroughly execute a plan and to thoroughly follow through with the activities that relate to really being able to do business as best as possible, and also while considering all of the sentiments of stakeholders that are involved. I've enjoyed serving the community and the city council, and I look forward to the rest of the debate.
Thank you, Council Member Scolati. Council Member White, your opening statement.
Okay. Well, I would first like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting us here. I have lived in St. Helena for over 50 years. I attended local schools and married my wife here 42 years ago. Raised our 2 children here in St. Helena who also went to local schools. I received my Bachelor of Science degree from California State University, Sacramento in Business Administration with a concentration in real estate and land use affairs. I've been the CEO of several companies. I have been a real estate broker for over 34 years and a licensed general contractor for 40 years. Now I have a consulting business doing project management and acting as owner's representative. And my most recent project has been the construction management of the new St. Helena Montessori School, which has occupied me for the last 8 years. For 2 years, I was on the Planning Commission, 4 years on the City Council. I've been your representative to the Napa County Transportation and Planning Agency and a representative on the Watershed Information Conservation Conservancy. If elected, I look forward to serving you and supporting our citizens and businesses as we move forward with implementing our new general plan and looking at our investments into our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Doring.
Thank you, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this forum. My name is Paul Doring, and I am a challenger. It's nice that both City Council members talked about their families and their backgrounds, because we often forget that we in business are also real people and human beings. We have our own aspirations, our families, our children, our hopes and dreams for our community. And so that's what is important. That's where we find the common ground. Most of the merchants on the downtown, in downtown St. Helena live here. I see them all. They are human beings first, business people second. And we always have to keep that in mind. And that's where we come together as a community, when we take away labels and move forward as human beings and work on one team. I'm married to Kara Doring, who's an RLS teacher here in St. Helena. I have 2 children who go to the public schools, Lucas and Leah, ages 13 and now 17, my son. I have so many aspirations for them, and that's why I'm running for City Council. I've been a lawyer for 26 years. I've been married to Kara for 26 years. I've had all kinds of experience in elective office, in government, in business. But really, my strength is collaborating, working collegially with all walks of life, from all viewpoints, to really sincerely and in good faith work on behalf of this community. And that's what I pledge to do.
Thank you, candidates. Before we move forward with our first question, I just wanted to briefly describe what the format will be, because there are 3 of you. We are going to ask a question. One of you will have 2 minutes to answer it. Oh, I'm sorry, 3 minutes to answer, followed by a 2-minute response by the opposite candidates, and then ending with a 2-minute response by the candidate who was first asked the question. Is that clear? And then we will rotate. Okay. So let's begin with our first question, which is for candidate Peter. Okay. Candidate Councilmember White. And the question is, well, it says Peter. You are the veteran on the council, and you seem to be running on your experience. Can you cite actions that you have taken that were directly beneficial to the business community? And can you give us a to-do business list for your next term to enhance St. Helena's overall economy should you be elected?
Well, I look at the support that we've given the chamber and the downtown area. We just recently gave the chamber a $50,000 grant to do some economic development study. And also we raised the cap, or took away the cap, on formula that the chamber gets every year from the city council. I think going forward, we need to really take a look at what the issues are and the needs are downtown. And I was intrigued by one of the questions that we had in our questionnaire that had to do with the business improvement district, that really made me start to think about what the benefits of actually implementing a business improvement district and what all the advantages would be for our downtown area. So I think going forward, we really should look at that and kind of wrap our heads around it. I guess that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Doring, you have the opportunity for a 2-minute follow-up.
Thank you. Well, having not served on the city council, it's a little difficult for me to respond to that directly, but I can certainly say that I've been representing business interests for 26 years as both a trial attorney, a business attorney, and a land use attorney. I fully understand the needs of business people in this community throughout the Napa Valley. One of the fundamental things that our businesses need is certainty and predictability. I know that. I'm a trial lawyer. I see all the problems that come out of the lack of certainty. I see all the problems in land use that come out of the lack of predictability. And the one thing that the city council has not done, unfortunately, is complete its general plan. And planning provides certainty not only to the residents, but to the businesses. And businesses feel uncertain. I've talked to many business owners who feel discouraged right now because they don't know where our city's going. They don't have confidence in our planning staff, and they feel uncertain about their investments and their concerns in the community. So we really need to move forward rapidly and complete the general plan, provide the certainty, and as soon as we complete that general plan, we need to move directly to the zoning codes, because that's another area where we provide certainty, predictability for our businesses. We need to move forward quickly on that.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Scolati, you have 2 minutes to respond.
Yes, thank you. I think the single most important thing that I've been able to vote on while being on the council for the last 2 years was supporting the Los Alcobas project. When they had to go back to U.S. Bank to secure their financing, they came to the city council to ask us if we could cover any shortfalls with TOT, that they could defer payment of TOT tax. I voted in favor of that because they needed to close, they needed that little extra boost to make their financiers happy. And as a result, the place is breaking ground, and that hotel on 3 acres, it's literally an infill style hotel, is a $55 million project that's coming into our community that's going to make us around $1.5 million in TOT tax. So when I reflect on what we've done on the council, we've finished the general plan and we've handed it to the planning commission. So anyone out there that's watching too, you're going to hear this a million times in the rest of this campaign, but we've done our work and we've sent it to the planning commission and we're waiting for it to return so we can do the final approval. I just want to get that kind of clear. So I'd say that supporting Los Alcobas was the thing I'm most proud of as far as in the business community. I can tell you for sure that the turnover in City Hall is, in my opinion, in a handful of categories, a really good thing, because it took the Minnigans 2 years to get through what they just got approved on, and that's unacceptable in my opinion to do business on Main Street. So one of the things I'm really excited about is continuing, if I can be on the council again and earn my seat back in this election, I want to continue to improve customer service for all of business, not just on Main Street, but throughout the city. I mean, we need to be business friendly to people that want to make a serious investment in our community, especially if it's going to net us more than simple sales tax, especially if it's going to be something as substantial as TOT revenue.
Thank you. Councilmember White, you have an opportunity for a 2-minute follow-up on this subject.
Okay, thank you. I think one of the things that I've been able to provide as a city council member also is being consistent with our process, and having that pragmatic look at the projects that have come before us, or different issues that have come to the city council. Having the business background, I really feel for the merchants and the commercial community, and I think it's my ability to be able to meet with both citizens of the city of St. Helena and the business community and feel comfortable in both arenas, and I'd like to move forward with that. So,
Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next question, and this will go to Mr. Doring.
Thank you.
We'll begin with Mr. Doring. In the candidates forum last week at the library, you stated that you wanted to protect our neighborhoods from negative market forces. Can you elaborate on what that means and what actions you intend to take to accomplish that?
What I am concerned about is what we're all concerned about, residents and businesses alike. We all talk about the importance of maintaining our small town, authentic, rural community. And that includes, in my view, most importantly, our neighborhoods. That includes our local serving businesses. I've been walking around St. Helena and learning more about the community that I've lived in for 14 years. We have some vibrant, fantastic neighborhoods. Cornella, Vineyard Avenue, Sylvaner, Vineyard Valley, El Bonita. What I'm talking about is making sure that those neighborhoods continue to exist as neighborhoods and that we avoid commercial intrusion in those neighborhoods by, for example, passing or amending a small winery ordinance that would allow wineries adjacent to those neighborhoods to have public events, to not have a residence attached to the use, because that goes away from the concept of neighborhoods. That becomes more commercial, and I'm really concerned about that. And I'm also concerned about the potential expansion of vacation rentals in the neighborhoods. We have a place for wineries. We have a place for hotels. We have a place for B&Bs and those kinds of things, inns. It's not in our neighborhoods. We call them neighborhoods for a reason. They're neighborhoods, and we need to protect them. And so I would not have voted for the small winery ordinance as it read. I would have taken the Greg Pitts approach and compromised on that and said, we can do that on Highway 29. That's a place for wineries, not in our precious neighborhoods. People come here because they love our authentic small town environment. It includes our neighborhoods, and we need to focus on those through the general plan, through zoning, and through the policies we make.
Thank you. Councilmember Scolati, you have an opportunity to respond. 2 minutes, please.
I think that Paul's comments are kind of obvious. I mean, of course we want to protect our neighborhoods, but is, the old St. Helena Olive Oil Company, I mean, is that an infringement in the neighborhood where I can go down and get a salami there? Should that be closed? No. I mean, there's certain things that have been grandfathered in and that kind of are just in the fabric of our communities. I'm proud that I voted for the winery ordinance because it was, in my mind, an attempt to be able to lock in value in viticulture. All right, specifically supporting the wine business in a way that locks a piece of land into a higher value tranche that can then not be converted to houses. And I know that sounds a little bit maybe tricky to grasp, but when you go to places that are as famous as we are, like Pomerol and Saint-Emilion and these places in Bordeaux, when you take a block of land and you make it an estate and that wine is vinified on that site, it becomes so valuable that it's not going to get turned into houses. And frankly, that's what I think is important. Now, absolutely agree that I'd like to reintroduce some better version of that gives protection perhaps to immediate neighbors. That became very clear, especially on the Madrona and Scott Street folks, that whose views would be directly impinged upon, and that's infringed upon, and that's a tough call. And I agree that there should be some tool and some method to not technically allow that to happen, to really get in people's backyards. But I'm actually proud of the winery ordinance, and I'd like to actually introduce a different version of it that protects immediate neighbors, but that still allows small wineries to happen in our other agricultural lands, which are varied and large in the city. That's my hope and attempt to lock in agriculture where we can, when we can. As far as the short-term rentals go in the neighborhoods, the ones that we've passed, the 25 we passed, some people use them, some people don't quite use them. I'm excited to see what comes up in the next year review, to see what the impacts really are. We're still learning.
Councilmember White, 2 minutes.
The small winery ordinance revision was a great learning experience that we began that process because of a number of exemptions that were made by the Planning Commission, by the council, and not just our council, but councils before, where if you read the small winery ordinance, it has a restriction of not being able to have any market events at the wineries. Well, it was felt by a number of wineries, or a few wineries that asked for exemptions, that they could have marketing events at their small wineries. So we opened up, or the Planning Commission opened up the idea of changing the ordinance, because there had already been a few exemptions, and if you're going to keep making exemptions to an ordinance, you really should take a look at whether the ordinance itself is right for the community. So there was 10 public hearings and a couple of stakeholder meetings, and then at the very last hour, all of a sudden it seemed like the neighborhoods woke up. And I applaud, that the neighborhoods started to get involved, or the citizens started to get involved, and I think it was prudent for the city council to drop it at that point. And someday, if we get some more requests for exemptions, then we should again take a look at that ordinance and try and do a little bit better outreach. I don't know how, but 10 public hearings should be just about enough outreach. And but I guess that's the way St. Helena is, that you have to watch out for the 11th hour.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Doring, for final comment, 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. Some of the things I actually agree with, and I'm sympathetic to trying new things, but one of the things, we have a little bit of a failure of memory about what happened during those meetings. And it's important to know that 2 of the council members tried their very best to pull the other 3 into a viewpoint of bifurcating the process, looking out for the existing wineries that were here and having problems economically given the recession, in terms, understanding the direct-to-consumer demands on those existing wineries. And I'm not suggesting that we go back and undo the existing wineries that are already here, no. But Councilmember Kroll and Councilmember Pitts suggested a compromise version that would allow the ordinance to go into effect on Highway 29, and to also look at existing wineries. And they lost on that boat. They couldn't get any cooperation, in my view, or sense of collaboration, or sense of working through those issues. Those 2 members represented the neighborhoods also. If I was on the city council, I would have stopped my process immediately and said, listen to what these folks are saying. This is a good idea. We could have passed a decent ordinance right then and there without having folks go to the extent of doing a petition. If we had only listened and reached out to other viewpoints in the community, including those 2 council members. So that was something that I would have done. That's something I've done while I was on the Calistoga City Council. All kinds of different viewpoints. We reached out and we found common ground, and that's what I pledge to do. No matter who gets elected here, whether it's anyone, the mayors, I pledge to do that. Let's find the common ground, and we could have done that. That was a perfect example of one where we could have done that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to question number 3, and this is going to begin with Councilmember Scolati. Begins Mario.
Mm-hmm.
At several council and public meetings, you've offered fresh ideas that you've garnered from other communities on how to improve our town and economy. Can you elaborate on exactly what are you doing to bring any of those into fruition for us?
It's a good question. I think that the actual time it takes to bring those into fruition is exactly why I really want to run for re-election and keep my seat, because there are some amazing, amazing things we can still do as a community that I think are just going to be an incredibly bright future for us as a community. One of the things that I would bring up in council meetings is that I've become kind of friendly with some of the council people in Telluride, Colorado, and I've learned how they've taken their revenue streams of TOT tax and also what is called an RETT tax, which is a real estate transfer tax, and they have literally been able to build affordable housing for themselves as a city with no subsidies from the state or federal government. And they're able to create incredible benefits for the citizens of the community by harnessing those specific types of tax dollars that are visitor-based. And it's kind of like awesome jujitsu. It's like they come at you with a lot of visitors and they take all of that money and put it right back into the community. And because it's going to happen anyway. St. Helena is the core of the most famous wine region on planet Earth, and by far the best marketed wine region on planet Earth. So this is not going away anytime soon. We're here because we love it, but we have an opportunity to create real economic sustainability by embracing a handful of the right revenue streams. I outlined a few in the questionnaire. I'm a huge fan of TOT because it's a straight 12% that we get to keep, and the visitors are happy. They can take their cars off the street and quit clogging up our streets and then actually walk into town and spend money and then go home, and we get to keep all those taxes. I'm a huge fan of that. I don't know how many rooms is totally appropriate. Looking at Carl's project the other night, it looks good, but if Carl just wants to flip it, I don't know if I'm in support of that. I'd like to make sure something gets built if it's proper and quality, that's going to bring those TOT dollars to help the beautification of our community, the revitalization of downtown. We need money to do it. So we talk about all these great things. Well, I can dream all I want, but if we don't have the money to do it, all the planning and anything you want to even dream of is not possible. So TOT is obviously one great way to do it. The other thing that some of these communities, luxury communities, have done is imposed a real estate transfer tax. The only way to do that in the state of California is to become a charter city. There are very good cities that have done this. I mean, Palo Alto's done it. Carmel's a charter city. I think Napa's even a charter city. It's a legal process that we have to go through, and it would allow us to charge 1% on every sale of piece of real estate. If we sell $100 million worth of real estate, it's an extra $1 million a year. And it's kind of just going to go away in the amortization of that guy's mortgage, especially if it's a second home buyer. So those are a couple things that I'd really like to work toward in the next 4 years, and I want to earn my seat back.
Thank you. Councilmember White, you have an opportunity to rebut that. The question was specifically to Councilmember Scolati, but if you have some further input on creative ideas, feel free to comment.
Well, having grown up here in St. Helena with the mantra of we don't want to be Carmelized, or we don't want to be some other community, or we don't want to be Yont Vegas, it's hard for me to kind of put my head around, being like somebody else from somewhere else. I think we can take a look at models from other communities and get ideas, but we are a unique town in itself, or a city in itself, and I think we have our own character and culture and opportunities that we can draw from our own citizens and our own businesses.
Thank you. Mr. Doring, you have the same opportunity. You can rebut any of the previous statements, or you can provide us with some creative ideas.
Do you mind repeating that question for me, please?
Okay, well, the question to Mario was, where is it? At several council and public meetings, you offered fresh ideas from other communities on how to improve our town and economy. Can you elaborate on exactly what you would do to bring any of those into fruition?
Okay. Well, with all due respect to the council members, they do have fresh ideas, but I haven't seen any action on the ideas. One of the dilemmas for council member Scolati is that his office is right in the heart of downtown, so he can't speak to the issues that are most important to the downtown merchants. As you all know, he's had to step down many times on the most important critical issues that are facing the city council, and that is the diversity of the downtown. And it's not, I don't want to suggest anything bad or ulterior. It's simply that he has an office space downtown. But it is an important concern for the business community, because I've talked to many members of the business community who feel that they are not fully represented. Not only is it a matter of not voting on a project, you can't even speak to the project. You can't lobby folks for a particular point of view. You really can't talk about your particular project. So I don't have those conflicts. One idea that I would have very quickly is to look at our existing hotels. Look at those existing footprints and work with the chamber to do a survey and find out which of those existing hotels could expand. Even if it's 5, 6, 7 units, if we got 4 or 5, like Y Down, Grandview, or the Las Alcobas project, there's several in town, Southbridge, and convince them that we could develop some incentives for them to just basically add more keys without changing the footprint, we would have immediate generation of revenue right now. And that's much easier to do than try to build a whole new project. We could get 40, 50 units, but that takes reaching out to the chamber then reaching out to those businesses and actually asking them, how could we help you get that done? And that's what I would do. And that's money. That is TOT, and it's not easy, but it's a lot easier than waiting for a hotel to be built.
Thank you. Councilmember Scolati, you have a 2-minute opportunity to respond.
Sure. I've actually thought about giving up my office a couple times because it's probably the greatest view on Main Street, but it is something I've been seriously considering, even perhaps just handing it over to a relative, because here's the thing. I'm absolutely able to participate in any visioning, any talks about diversification of how we want to approach business on Main Street. If we want to, put any planning beyond the free market into Main Street, that's absolutely a conversation that I can be part of on committees from a holistic sense. So that's mythology that he was saying. Sometimes I do have to recuse myself if it's within 500 feet, but the majority of the meat and potatoes issues that we're going to be faced are going to be resort locations that are well beyond any zone that I'd have to recuse myself from, and that's going to happen within the next 4 years for sure. There are going to be debates about this, and there are going to be a lot of discussions about it. I think the most important thing that I want to say again is that we need to create new revenue streams, or we will die on the vine. Period. We have an $8.3 million budget, and it is pathetic compared to what some of our neighboring cities get just from TOT tax. I mean, Calistoga gets $3 million in TOT. Ours is $1.5 million. I'm not advocating becoming Yaunt Vegas. Seriously, it is Yaunt Vegas, and that's why I don't choose to live there. But beyond TOT, the only other things that I can see would be this real estate transfer tax expiration and potentially some type of amazing heritage quality building on Adams Street that could generate real money for us for events that could be financed almost like a traditional commercial building. And those are a handful of things that I think we can explore that can all cooperate in conjunction with really strengthening us as a city, so we can take care of our business, take care of infrastructure, and take care of our people.
Thank you, Councilmember Scolati. So we've asked each of you specific questions. We have one final question from the chamber, and it's a general question for all three of you. In your opinion, yes, I'm sorry, Councilmember White, we will begin with you, and here's the question. In your opinion, what is the appropriate role of the Chamber of Commerce in local issues, and how actively will you include the Chamber in your decision-making?
Well, I think the Chamber is very important in all local issues. I believe the Chamber, because it's made up of citizens here in town, is just as much a resident, just as much a part of the community as our neighborhoods, and because you do live in our neighborhoods. I don't see any distinction. I think that the Chamber should be a participant, especially in any of our economic development issues, and especially moving forward, trying to get more revenue into the city coffers. I agree with Mario that a $9 million budget for this city is not enough to even maintain the infrastructure that we already have. Our infrastructure has fallen apart over the last, it's fallen apart. and we need to do something about it. So the Chamber is, and our downtown businesses and our service commercial areas and our industrial areas are our economic engine, and that's where most of our income comes from. So you've got to be part of it.
Thank you very much, Councilmember White. Mr. Doring, a follow-up? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. So, I started out my law practice in Calistoga a long time ago, and I still have my law practice there. And I immediately joined the Chamber of Commerce. I've been on the Calistoga Chamber of Commerce for 17 years. I fully understand the nature of the Chambers of Commerce, what their obligations are. I served 2 years as a director. I learned quite a bit. I have a fair amount of knowledge about businesses because I represent so many throughout the Napa Valley, but it was really an eye-opener to me. One of the things I can say now is that I think this chamber is severely underfunded. It cannot do all the work that we want it to do. And that's not an attempt to pander to the chamber. I know what the budget is in Calistoga, and they are using great funds to do great things. Frankly, I'm very proud of the service I had on the chamber in Calistoga. Very proud to work with Chris Canning, who's the executive director and the mayor of Calistoga. Calistoga has been doing some great things with a lot of funding. And so I'm willing to sit with any liaison team, government liaison relations team, or anything like that, sit with you, meet with you, share ideas, be that connection to the council. We also need a liaison or committee that deals with residents so that we can tone down this notion of residents versus businesses. I can bridge that gap because I did it in Calistoga. Ultimately, residents favored Solage, which was a controversial project, and no, there is no controversy about Solage. We built 25 units of affordable housing with the Solage project. The residents are generally happy, but we have their same issues there in terms of preserving the small town nature of the community. But I'm ready, willing, and able to meet with any organization in the chamber. I believe in chambers of commerce. You're human beings, you're people who live here, you have a stake in our community.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Scolati, follow up?
Yeah, from the time that I can remember as a child, the Chamber of Commerce has been very important in my life. Talking about business around the dinner table growing up. And my parents, I remember getting to go to Saint-Emilion with Audie Hain with the Chamber of Commerce, learning about, what are they doing in France? What are we doing over here? The Chamber of Commerce plays an incredibly vital role in our community. And the thing is that we all enjoy this community for not just the sunshine. We enjoy it because it functions as an interlocking set of services that we all love. I like going to Farmstead and having a fresh burger right there, even if it's crowded, and it's impacting the street parking a little bit. I mean, I still love it, and we've been here 100 years. The Chamber of Commerce, in my opinion, I want to see a way to increase our budget as a city, which it's not going to unless we get creative and figure out how we can increase the budget so that we can actually do more things and fund, and fund better activities together with the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, festivals, just the intrinsic authenticity that we have as a community, and everything that's wine related. I mean, we can be doing so many things that embrace the public and the citizens celebrating what we have here as our heritage. But business and taxes is what allows that to happen. Otherwise, we ask for handouts or we go into debt. Come on, those are the choices. Pass a big bond, go into debt, or stay the same. So I'm a huge advocate. I'd love to actually figure out a way to budget in somebody who's an economic advisory consultant. We've heard comments about needing a water consultant. I agree, but we need someone who can actually help consult us on finding the best businesses to come into town. And I have to stop, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember White, final comment, 2 minutes, please.
Well, I think the record of this council has been supportive of the Chamber of Commerce. I would also like to see further investment into our economic engine, which is the downtown core and all of our commercial endeavors. And I mean, the Chamber of Commerce is going to be forthright and in front of our marketing of St. Helena to be able to increase our revenue streams and to keep us viable and to be able to pay for our infrastructure and all the rest of it. We have visitors that are already here, already coming here. We need to capture those visitors and have them stay, get out of their cars, and participate more in our community.
Thank you very much, Councilmember White. That concludes the first segment of this portion of the debate. We're going to take an 8-minute break. Again, we are continuing to accept questions. Oh, we have a lot of questions that came in. Great. Well, apparently we have a lot of people that are really interested in what you gentlemen are talking about. So we're going to take an 8-minute break, and we'll see you back here shortly.
Thank you.
Great.
And we're back. Thank you for rejoining us, candidates. So this next part is a segment that provides questions that have been given to us by the community. We've actually got quite a few. We are going to select the questions that, again, have no redundancy in what has previously been covered, those that are somewhat business or economic related, and no topics that would cause a council member to recuse themselves. Additionally, we did get a lot of varying questions, but again, we stayed focused on business and the things that are important to the chamber. So what was the other thing I was supposed to announce? Oh, yeah, I just wanted to let the audience here know, and those that are watching at home, that a questionnaire was given to the candidates, both the council member candidates and the mayor candidates. These consisted of questions that have similar themes of what's been asked tonight, but in more detail. All the candidates have returned those questionnaires to us, and they will be published, the answers will be published about midday tomorrow on the Chamber's website, and also they will be submitted to the Star for potential publication. So let us begin. Okay, the first question is going to go to Mr. Doring.
Thank you.
Many of the businesses on Main Street have different opinions on what Main Street needs. How would you help facilitate a compromise, and how do you see our downtown in 10 to 15 years?
Well, thank you for that difficult question. I don't have...
That was from the community, by the way.
Let me try that again. There I am. Thank you. The approach I've always taken with these complicated issues is to bring people together and plan. Planning is the key to St. Helena. All of these issues, planning and zoning, can get us together to work through these issues. Planning gives people in this community, our residents and our businesses, a voice in what they want to see in the downtown area. My vision, or my hope, is that we have a vibrant, successful downtown where merchants are making a lot of money and that people are flourishing. We really need to focus, though, on the general notion of planning for our community and getting our general plan completed and then getting our zoning ordinance completed. Diversity is always good. This notion of being reactive to applications as they come forth is not good for the community because it creates so much dissent. If we already know what we want, that's a good thing. We have to be proactive in our approach to business. We cannot wait for businesses to come to us. We need to decide for ourselves what we want, not only in the downtown area, but throughout the larger business area that goes beyond the downtown area. If we want resident-serving businesses, we need to figure out where they best can go. They don't have to necessarily be in the downtown core. We already have some there. Of course, they should stay. But there are other areas beyond the downtown core where we can zone for those residents, create incentives, as Mayor Navarro talked about, to have them come. We can do this with smart planning, cutting-edge planning, and not regulatory planning. That's how a community gets together. And I'm willing to talk with members of the chamber, businesses, bring the vast amount of knowledge I have in representing businesses, being involved in government, LAFCO, NCTPA, all of the government issues, the government relation issues, business and government. My strength is being able to pull people together. That's why I'm running. That's what I'm committed to. So yes, a vibrant, busy downtown that's well diversified and successful. We do not want to have closed doors in the downtown area. So I'm very hopeful that that's what we will do. Thanks.
Thank you. We're going to Councilmember Scolati, a follow-up, please.
Sure. So again, just downtown Main Street in 15 years, kind of an idea. Well, I can tell you that ever since I was a little kid, I mean, St. Helena has changed a lot as it was. I remember you got to remember when my dad was growing up, there was 10 bars alone on Main Street. Now that's not diversity. So we come a little ways. But what I see is an absolute vibrant, diverse mix of businesses that are not chain stores, but that might be businesses that have other great experiences in other markets that can relate to us, that can relate to that luxury quality. That might be in a couple of other different markets, but they're not a chain, but they just really run an amazing business. Those are the kind of small cap companies like that I would hope to populate our retail stores on Main Street. And really they're going to have to be, because the rents are going to keep going up. I mean, it's people forget that landlords dictate pretty much also who goes in there based on what kind of rents they're asking. So, but I see a time when we have a couple of hotels that are open where people are shopping into the evening, who are walking, who are biking, and our downtown corridor is abuzz with economic activity, not annoying in its scale, but something that is really human scale and easily to approach, not where people are just really angry that they can't find a parking spot, and that's what I see. I see the opportunity for mixed use, especially, and maybe even the potential of new real estate offices being upstairs. Or maybe professional offices being moved to mixed use areas that don't necessarily. My time is up, but I want it to be vibrant, beautiful, and happy.
Great picture, thank you. Councilmember White.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Okay.
It was pretty complex.
Yes, many of the businesses on Main Street have different opinions. Many of the businesses on Main Street have different opinions on what Main Street needs. How would you help facilitate a compromise, and how do you see our downtown in 10 to 15 years?
Well, I think we need to have the strategic plan, and it's spelled out. We added a section in the economic sustainability element that calls for an economic sustainability strategy, and that would be a tool that we would create that would have measurements that we can, I guess, first have a plan and then have a vehicle for measuring how the policies have been shaped and what the successes are, and also modeling for future activity, and to see how that all fits in. So I think that I agree with Paul and Mario. We need planning. We need to have a process that is proactive, that moves ahead of the game of waiting for the next applicant to come in, and then we all wring our hands over whether or not we need another jewelry store or another wine tasting room. We need to get ahead of that, and that's not changing the market forces. That's being proactive to coming up with solutions of collaboratively how we want the downtown area to look. In 15 years, I have no idea what it's going to look like, because 15 years ago, I would have never thought it was going to look the way it does. So we'll see.
Thank you. Mr. Doring, your final comment, peering into St. Helena's crystal ball.
I've been thoroughly scolded. Yes, Dad. Both council members have made good points. It's very difficult to articulate that. I hope we have a great community, that our residents and that our businesses are thriving and we're working together. We're compromising. That my kids are here to enjoy what we have, that we resolve some of the tremendous traffic congestion issues that we have that are really impinging on the downtown right now and making it uncomfortable for both residents and visitors. Those are things that we need to work on. That's a whole new topic, I know, but in general, I agree with both council members on this topic.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to our third question, right? Number 2, okay. This is going to begin with Council Member Scolati, and it's another easy one. From the community, the Planning Commission reviewed plans for the Adams Street project several years ago, all rejected by the council. What do you see on Adams Street?
I love this topic because here's what I can tell you about the visioning statement of Adams Street as I know it, is when those sketches that people have seen came out, those are highly influenced by developers who wanted to build apartments there. They helped draw those things, and it included us giving them the land and giving them a couple $1,000,000 to build it out. Hello. Like, I'm not totally subscribed to that. I can tell you that. All right, so if a developer comes in and wants us to give them a bunch of free stuff, and that's the visioning statement, now I'm over exaggerating. Okay, there's a lot of community input on it that it should be mixed use in some ways. There should be community elements, and there should be things that we can enjoy together as a community. What I see for that site does not include housing or offices. And frankly, I don't even think it includes City Hall. I think it should be something that embraces and this is after talking to lots of different people, and in the last 2 years especially, because I would get asked this a lot. And And so what a lot of people are telling me is we need a cultural type center that's a quality building that we can actually gather, that's not just the Native Sons Hall, even though we love the Native Sons Hall. And we need expansion for the library, the Historical Society, and the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum. These are incredible assets that are very community oriented. I would prefer that place, and especially with the history of those vines, when Larry Turley came in and gave us that wonder, just his comments on the history of those vines, I'd like to make sure that as little of that vineyard as possible is removed to preserve something that is really a world-class site that we have as a community. Now, doing something like that doesn't mean we just go into debt or we do it on some bond. You can actually finance something like this in a semi-commercial way, where if we wanted to build a $5 million building that was a community center, we could cash flow the building with 60 weddings a year, and it would pay for itself. And then we'd have 300 days out of the year where we get to use it as a community. So that's how my mind works when I think about real estate, when I think about cash flow, when I think about how can you be creative with a site that brings a maximum return to the community. Well, if I have an apartment there, sweet, but that's not the community, that's one guy. And so I like this idea that I've been hearing from residents, from people in the neighborhoods, people that I talk to on a daily basis, which is, hey, let's make this something that the community can enjoy, and let's lock in this very special place, and don't make it the office building across the street. I go to the ETS laboratories to run my samples. Like, it's a clean building, but do we want that right there? No, we deserve something better than that, I think, as a community, and that's what members have told me too.
Thank you. Councilmember White, follow up, please.
Well, since the presentation of the Historic Society, we formed a small committee, Greg Pitts and myself, and to get together with the Historic Society and take a look at different ideas of where the Historic Society could have a home. And so we've started that process, and my vision of the civics, of the Adam Street property, is pretty much a full-on civic center that would anchor our cultural heritage in our history museum, our library, the RLS museum, some venues for our recreation department, and then also some kind of venue that would be revenue generating, that would host conferences, weddings, entertainment events. I think it's a very doable project. I think, with the type of funds or revenues that you get from some really world-class venues that you can have conferences and weddings and such at, we could generate quite a bit of income. And also, I agree, being a businessman, you have the income flow to be able to go out and borrow money for it. I think it would be not a simple thing, but it would be doable.
Mr. Doring.
Thank you. So I want to take a little bit of a different tack here. It's easy for someone to ask you, well, what's your vision, council member? And really, that ignores the process entirely. My vision is irrelevant. It's the vision of the community that is most important. I have ideas for all kinds of things in the world, but as a city council member, you have to respect the process of the community. Because if I announce my idea, I'm basically telling the community, I've already made up my mind. And if I announce my idea, it disrespects the whole process that went along when folks got together and created that visioning statement. That visioning statement has a lot of things on it, community-oriented buildings, and it included some affordable housing. If the consensus of the community has changed, then we have to recognize that and move forward, and maybe that vision statement evolves. But my vision is irrelevant. It's the community's vision that's relevant. Now, with respect to development of the property, the city council was the one who invited the RFPs for these developers to come. It was an invitation by the city of St. Helena to bring these folks forward. and they came forward. There were 6 of them, and they were all rejected. I was not on the council then. I don't know all the ins and outs of why it was rejected. But if you're fully committed to doing what the community wants and you go through that process, I would have maybe rejected, I don't know, but I would have probably reached out to each of those developers or the planning commission and said, why are these RFPs deficient? And how can we bridge that gap to make them more palatable to the community? Reduce the number? Maybe that's the way to go. Whatever we do on that beautiful site, which we've held for 14 years at $3 million of our hard-earned money, it should be community-oriented for your families, your generation, your grandkids. Let's put something there that the community can benefit from. And we also need to be sure that it's revenue generating. So there's a whole host of things to do that. Thank you. I know there's stop.
Thank you. Councilmember Scolati, a final comment?
Sure, and I have 2 minutes for that. Well, I can say that, I know that the RFPs that came in, the majority of them included, this is what we can do for you, give us the land, and give us money. That's not cool with me, and I'm just going to say it. Because if you don't have any revenue, and they want to have them give us away our precious land, that's out of the question. That's just how I feel. I'm not rejecting in any way, the conversation and the importance of a conversation that has to be had. But I think it's a new era. We just survived the Great Recession. We have a different appreciation for a dollar. We have a different appreciation for what it feels like to be in debt. All right. And I think that there's a lot of good DNA from those early meetings, but I think that it's a new understanding. I know that our families learned a lot in the Great Recession. I don't know about you guys, but I think that any way that we can be cash positive instead of giving away our resources or giving handouts outright, we need to be financially prudent, and we need to be really intelligent about sustainability from a revenue standpoint. Listen, I'm super excited about the next round of what this visioning is going to look like because the pulse is different. I just feel it, going down to the coffee shop or at the model bakery and talking to people about what they want to see. The pulse is just different. So I don't want to live in the past. Let's live with what we have now, with what we've learned, and then move forward. Believe me, this is absolutely one of the reasons that I want to continue and be on the council again and be reelected, is we're going to get to go through this process, and it's going to happen in the next 4 years. And we're really going to get to dig deep into this and understand what's best for all the citizens in the community. So it's really exciting. And I don't have my mind totally made up, but I like the idea of not giving away our resources, but rather having them work for us and for our community.
Thank you very much. The third and final question of this segment of the debate will begin with Councilmember White, and it specifically addresses you. With the enormous wealth in St. Helena, and given your statement that you don't want to follow the example of other small towns, which have turned their uniqueness into revenue, how will you find the resources to deliver the infrastructure St. Helena deserves?
I'm not quite sure.
You want me to reread it?
Yeah.
Okay. Given the enormous wealth in St. Helena, given your statement that you don't want to follow the examples of other small towns who have turned their uniqueness into resources, reserves, and revenue, how will you find the resources to deliver the infrastructure St. Helena deserves?
Well, I don't think that I was in that statement of the caramelization and those comments that I was saying that we don't want to have commercial vitality, and I don't want to even construe that. What I was saying was we're an individual community that has its own uniqueness, and that we don't necessarily have to model ourselves after any of those communities. We've got enough entrepreneurship and community bonds that we can do it in our own way. definitely we need to have an economic vitality to be able to fix our infrastructure. I think it's important that we take a look at hotel rooms, because that's the best tax of not our own citizens to be able to afford our infrastructure to be worked on and fixed. 12% is much better than our little tiny percentage that we get from sales tax or real estate tax. So I'm in favor of generating income from our visitors rather than taxing our own citizens.
Thank you very much. Mr. Doring, a follow-up?
Do you mind reading that one more time?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No problem at all.
I am.
Okay. With the enormous wealth in St. Helena, and given Councilmember White's statement that he didn't want to follow the example of other small towns, which have turned their uniqueness into, it looks like resources, but we're assuming that what they're talking about is that they've been able to turn their uniqueness into revenue sources. How will you find the resources to deliver the infrastructure St. Helena deserves?
First of all, let me acknowledge clearly that St. Helena is unique. We are different than Calistoga, Yountville, Carmel, and all the other cities in the world. I agree with the passion that Mario has, for example, about the vineyards that we have here and the historic wineries. We go back a long ways in St. Helena. The vibrancy and the great wealth of our community starts from the vineyard, goes to the wineries, and everybody comes for that. And so no one can touch St. Helena in that regard. The historic downtown that we have, the real downtown that many communities don't have, folks come here for that small town, authentic experience, in addition to the great restaurants, the hospitality services. In terms of revenue, I think we should be focusing on the highest end hotels we can get that are reasonable and appropriate given the resources we have at the time. Water and traffic and all these issues and housing are issues of concern for me. Now is the time to do the deals. Folks are coming. The economy's on the move. It's still a little difficult to get financing, but I have folks that I know that are moving forward in the Napa Valley looking for places for hotels. We can be strategic. We have to go high end, and I agree that that's our best source of income, the TOT, although we do not suffer immensely from property tax deficiencies here in St. Helena. That is our greatest revenue base. Our property taxes are quite high. We get, I believe it's 2.8 million of property tax. We get about 2.5 million of sales tax, and the current budget for the TOT is 1.5 to 1.7 million. We definitely need to improve the TOT tax area. We need to keep our town authentic, real, historical. That's why people come here. That's our gem, and that's what we should focus on.
Thank you. Councilmember Scolati, a 2-minute follow-up.
Absolutely. One of the eye-opening experiences of being on the council is that you don't get to see on a daily basis, but you get to kind of see when you're in there, is how dangerous some of our infrastructure situations are, and it's not necessarily because it's just it's a negligence of a current council. I mean, blame it on the negligence of whoever built it, or blame it on the negligence of whoever decided that we needed to do that many roads that now need repaving. I mean, you can take it back and back and back to the point where you really wonder, why did we expand in these ways without a real revenue model that's going to justify these type of infrastructures? Well, when I think about building more houses versus something that could generate us money, I would right now be an advocate of generating some money first, because people are always going to want to build a house here. They're always going to want to come here. We have this amazing blessing to be here already, but let's like put on our own oxygen mask for a second before we put it on like our kid. I mean, obviously we want to help everyone, but we need to do a couple of these, potentially these high-end projects that are going to yield us TOT, and we really should consider even some type of real estate transfer tax over the next 4 years. I think that could be good. Right now, at an $8.3 million budget, we're paving our roads, we're handling things, we're maintaining things, but we really need to build a war chest, so to speak, so that we can handle uncertainties. I mean, I know that when I went up to the dam the other day, I mean, that valve's going to have to be replaced. The actual spigot that comes out of Bell Canyon is going to have to be replaced. That's a $2 million project. I mean, with all the regulations and everything, where's that money going to come from? We've got to start building a real fund that's going to address just the basic infrastructures, in addition to what's going to be the frosting on the cake that makes it wonderful to be here, the bike paths, the parks, everything. Okay, stop.
Thank you. Councilmember White, final response, 2 minutes on the question regarding infrastructure revenue.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know that there's that much more to say. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that we need to have new revenue sources to be able to sustain. I mean, we have not actually been able to completely maintain our streets and sidewalks. They've gone into disrepair. They're going further into disrepair. We don't have enough money to actually keep up with what needs to be done. So we really seriously have to get moving on getting revenue sources so we can get ahead of our roads and sidewalks and there goes my seat and the rest of the infrastructure that we need to handle.
Okay, thank you very much. So that concludes the questions from the community portion of our debate. We are going to now conclude with the statements of the candidates. And according to the way that the names were drawn, the first opportunity to speak to a prepared question from the chamber will be Mr. Doring. And would you please answer the following question? You will have 3 minutes.
Thank you.
St. Helena's economy is dependent upon and influenced by the wine industry and tourism. There seems to be a growing sentiment to drawing a line in the sand between tourism and quality of life. The Chamber believes not only that these can successfully coexist, but that it is crucial to find that common ground for St. Helena's economic viability. How do you intend to change the discourse from animosity to collaborative?
Okay, I was a little confused there. I thought there was going to be another question. You're talking about the closing statement, responding to that. Okay, got it. You know, first of all, I reject the premise that there's animosity. I think folks are weighing in on the process. Of course, there are a lot of opinions out there. I'm not sure it rises to the level of animosity. That's a fairly strong word that I would not choose. In fact, that word probably separates us more than we want it to. I think we all have a stake in our community, and all the stakeholders, residents, businesses, seniors, young people, teachers, police, everybody has a stake in the community. I've spent my whole life trying to work with people in the law, in my practice, with my clients, with my family, with my wife. That is what brings me to run for city council. I believe I have the strength and, frankly, the humility that is needed to work with people of all persuasions, all backgrounds, all political views. I've had a history of that throughout my life. But really fundamentally and most importantly for you folks who want to know, I did that exactly in Calistoga. I was on the council there for 4 years, and we had a whole variety of people from different views. And we had to work to collaborate, to work together, to reduce tensions in the community, to bring the community together. I did that with Mayor Mario Caligari, Rose Beck, Rose Dunford, the owner of the Calistoga Inn. All these folks had different political persuasions. And so I came together with them, worked with them to collaborate with them to solve problems. And that's really what it's going to take, somebody who can bridge the gap between the various alliances or tribes or whatever you want to call it in St. Helena. We really need to come together, and I'm the person, I think, who's best suited to do that. I've done that throughout my life in law, business, government, family, church, wherever it is. That's where I've done that. Now I say shaking heads here that I don't really, maybe I haven't gotten that question accurate. I hope I have. I was seeing like, okay, I apologize. The question was difficult for me because it was a little convoluted, but I think I got the intent. Really, it's about personal relationships. The core value for me through all my life is respecting the dignity of each person. And if you can do that in policy, government, in all the decisions you make, and you become more inviting to people, you can get a lot done in life. And that's what I'm committed to do on the St. Helena City Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Scolati?
Yes, and again, so the question really pertains to how can we coexist in a place where the wine industry absolutely is our lifeblood, and how do we coexist, right? Again,
I can reread it if you wish.
Please,
Okay.
but I haven't had to ask for that yet.
That's okay, no, it's fine. The St. Helena's economy is dependent upon and influenced by the wine industry and tourism. There seems to be a growing sentiment of drawing a line in the sand between tourism and quality of life.
Right.
The Chamber believes not only that these can successfully coexist, but that it is crucial to find that common ground for St. Helena's economic viability. How do you intend to change the discourse from animosity to collaborative?
Okay. Yeah, it is. It's a very good question because while I also don't think there's necessarily animosity, I think that when my family came here 100 years ago, we were the migrant farmers. We were the Italians. We lived on Tanner Street, and that was and we were and that's we worked in the fields and everything. And my grandfather ended up farming for his brother-in-law Otto Berenger and developing those ranches and really living the daily lifeblood of farming in the Napa Valley in St. Helena. And so I've never forgotten those stories, and we have probably the greatest natural resource in our ability to produce world-class wine that is such a luxury, that is such a blessing, that it's almost unfathomable that we get to live here. So there is absolutely no difference to me between what we do on Main Street versus how we're integrated with the wine industry. We would not exist without the wine industry. We would be San Jose because it's just some sunshine and it's the California climate. So as it pertains to some comments from community members that don't like the influence of the wine business, well, I mean, Fairfield's got plenty of room, and it's still the sunshine, and it's still California. We are the hub of the American wine business. And it's a privilege, and it's also a huge responsibility. So I think that everyone lives here because they embrace that idea, that lifestyle, that sentiment. And people that are coming to visit here wish they could live here. So when I'm in my car and there's traffic and I get mad, I'm like, wait a second, pinch, I live in St. Helena? Yes. So let's just bring it back to what the reality is here. There's always going to be people bickering about traffic and problems and yada yada. We live in St. Helena, California. Let's deal with it. All right. So that's the good news. I don't think there's necessarily a line in the sand. I think it comes down to not in my backyard, and we all have to just get along and learn to make compromises where we need to. All right. I think that the future is only bright for St. Helena. We've got an amazing brain power in St. Helena. There's an amazing amount of wealth in industry, in contribution, in charity. And so this combination of things puts us in an incredible position, and we just need more time to properly execute in this pathway that we're leading to with new revenue streams and with an improved quality of life. Imagine that, improving the quality of life we already have. I mean, it's almost just comical. But yeah, so that we can make life even better for our citizenry. And I'm just so excited that I've gotten to do it for 2 years, and I want to do it for 4 more.
Thank you, Councilmember Scalati. Councilmember White, your closing answer, please.
Yeah, this was, kind of tough, but not. I really believe that our community is one unit, and it's the citizens, it's the businesses, and it's our visitors. And I think the key to actually pulling everybody together is education. I don't think it's an animosity either. I think it's more of a fear of the unknown. We've got, a fear of change, a fear of limited resources. We fear the traffic congestion and our limited housing stock. And we also, I think, besides confronting those fears and educating ourselves as to how to deal with them, we also need to educate everybody about what the reality is. And the realities are that we need to fix our roads, and we need to have sidewalks that are safe and passable, and we need to have safe routes for our children. We also need to maintain and increase our water supply, and we need our sewer system to be adequate, and we also need to maintain our public facilities and to provide police protection and fire protection. We need to educate everybody in the town together to realize what we have, and what we actually need. And then we also, need to take a look at what the solutions are. I've lived here for 50 years in St. Helena, and we have gone from a small agrarian middle-class community to what we see today, which is pretty different. Most of the parents of my friends when I was growing up, they worked at Mare Island, or they worked at Kaiser Steel, or they worked in the fields. They were the field workers. So I think through proper planning and implementation of when we get the general plan finished, and we put together our economic strategy, those are the things that, if we can get rid of the anxiety and the mystery that surrounds us, every time we start talking about a different project or something, that's what's going to bring us together. I don't think there's anybody that lives here or works here that doesn't love the way the city is right now. And it was the same 15 years ago, it was the same 30 years ago. Everybody loved the town the way it was, but it's changed. And it keeps changing, and it has to evolve. So I think, as a community, and if we all look at each other as part of it, that the solutions are going to come.
Thank you very much. This concludes the 2014 mayoral and council member candidates debate. On behalf of the St. Helena Chamber of Commerce, we thank the candidates and the community for your participation. Good
Thank you so
evening.
much.
Thank you.
Good
Thank you
evening.
to the chamber.